You could actually spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere 20 kilometers over our head and use that to stop the planet warming up in a ugly tech fix.
You can spray something into the atmosphere to change.
Spray pollution into the atmosphere to stop it warming.
How do you do this?
You start with a fleet of modified business jets and say 20,000 tons of sulfuric acid into the stratosphere every year. And each year you have to put a little more. And this doesn't, in the long run, mean that you can forget about cutting emissions. We will need to rein in emissions.
We'll get to it eventually. But in the meantime, we're shrouding the Earth in sulfuric acid.
So people are terrified about talking about this because they're scared that it will prevent us cutting emissions.
Right, and also that it's sulfuric acid.
We put 50 million tons of sulfuric acid in the air now as pollution, and it kills 1 million people a year worldwide.
Okay, but it'll be better if we put more in.
We're talking about 1% of that.
1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math.
What happens to the sulfuric acid after it's sprayed? Does it just stay up there?
No, it rains down, but it's a tiny addition to what we're already doing.
Is there any possible way this could come back to bite us in the end?
It actually turns out to be an old idea. This was known since President Johnson.
You ever look at those planes up there? They have contrails behind them. Maybe all those planes with the contrails, maybe they're actually spraying chemicals into the atmosphere right now and Uncle Sam isn't telling us.
It seems extremely unlikely.
That the United States is not telling something to its citizens, that seems extremely likely to me. Read the newspaper. I think they might have your idea already.
It's an empirical question how people will actually react to knowledge about this. Another reaction is to say, if these crazy scientists are so concerned about putting CO2 in the atmosphere, they want to think about these things, then that might actually mean we should be more serious about the risks of CO2 in the atmosphere. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard. It's more like free riding on our grandkids. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard. It's more like free riding on our grandkids. Conceptually, it's simple. The Earth is in some kind of balance where we absorb sunlight and we radiate it away as infrared. And what CO2 is doing by warming the climate is making it harder for that infrared to get out. If you reflect away a little more sunlight by adding reflective aerosols, tiny particles, say, to the upper atmosphere.
And how do you do that?
You could do it with aircraft, for example. The doing it is probably not the hard part, but you could use aircraft or other methods to deliver literally tons or millions of tons of very small particles to the upper atmosphere.
One way, sort of spraying them out at a high altitude.
Correct.
Send planes up into the air that release an aerosol to do the trick. The basic idea would simply be that flying from just 1 or 2 airfields, maybe near the tropics, you would gradually build up in the stratosphere these fine particles that would slowly reflect away a tiny bit of sunlight. Not to magically cure the problem, because there is no magic cure, but to reduce some of the risks of accumulated CO2. But would it really reduce global temperatures? Keith says the answer is probably yes.
We could really, on a region-by-region basis, say reduce the intensity of extreme storms, like the big tropical cyclones that are so destructive, especially to the world's poor, or heat waves, and also to reduce the melting of the ice caps. So the evidence, the scientific evidence that these technologies could reduce risk is very strong.
The problem is it's unclear what else solar geoengineering would do, that is the technical term for putting all those particles in the stratosphere.
Absolutely true that any version of this solar geoengineering will have unexpected side effects, I'm sure, problems, uncertainties, but of course the state we're in has unexpected uncertainties.
So with all of the uncertainty, should we send jet plane after jet plane after jet plane into the air to spray the stratosphere? It's worth further research, perhaps some trials in selected places and reviews of the side effects. Look, it sounds too good to be true, but sometimes that is how technology works. So why not try? Next time.